Okay, so we left off in 1.8 at the order of operations. So the order of operations are 4 steps essentially. There's layers to it that you can get more involved in other courses or other textbooks will present it different ways, but this is a pretty simplistic way to look at the order of operations. So the first step is to work inside of parentheses first. So we've already talked about that. So if there's stuff to do inside of the parentheses, you've got to simplify that down first. Step 2, simplify expressions with exponents. Now we haven't really touched on exponents too much except for just now. So you have a little bit of a sense of how that works. So, but we'll see it in action with these problems as we go. After you've simplified those, then you want to multiply or divide from left to right. Now again, it's not multiplication first and division second. It's either or as you go from left to right. So you got to be really careful. There's going to be spots where they try to trip you up. So uh, next we have, there's an email. Next we have adding or subtracting in from left to right as well. So same thing. It's not adding first and then subtracting second. It's either or from left to right. So let's take a look at some examples. So we got -2 plus 3 times 5. So this is a nice one to warm up with. So you only have 2 operations in this one. So multiplication comes before addition does. So we have to do this multiplication first. Now I like to put a little square around it just to kind of show that that's what I'm focusing on first. But again, whatever you want to do is fine. So we know that 3 times 5 is 15. So now we just have to add those two numbers together. But really, because they have different signs, we know we got to subtract. So in this case, we should get a positive 13 from that. So again, this one was a quick one because there was only 2 operations. Let's take a look at the next one. So we got 6 to the second power divided by -4 in parentheses. And then remember, if there's parentheses right next to each other, that implies that there's multiplication. So there is a multiplication in here. And so then times our -3. So we got exponent, division, and then we got multiplication. So let's take care of the exponent first because that comes before the multiplication and division. So we want to get 36 divided by -4 times -3. Now you're probably saying, well, wait a minute, you skipped over the parentheses. There's parentheses here. Why didn't we do that first? Well, because there's not anything to do inside of the parentheses. That's the key. Inside, there has to be something to do, and there's nothing to do inside of them. All the parentheses are for here is just to indicate multiplication. So that's where it's deceiving because a lot of you are probably saying, "Oh, I need to multiply that. That's going to be 12. I got to do that, right?" Not in this case. Had it been written like this, then you have these bigger sets of parentheses here that says we got to do this operation inside of it, but we don't have that here. So it's just indicating multiplication. So you got to be really careful. Now, had you multiplied this first, you would have gotten 12. So 36 divided by 12 is 3, which would seem like it's a nice answer. So it's probably right, but it's not. So in this case, there's 2 operations left. There's division and there's multiplication. We have to use step 3, which says multiply and or divide from left to right. So we have to start with the division. So we'll divide these 2 numbers here and get a -9, and we still have the multiplication times the -3. So negative times negative better be positive. So we get positive 27. All right. So again, you got to be really careful, and showing the steps is going to be important for this stuff. So on a test, you definitely want to make sure you show those steps. So, all right, so now this next one, we got some parentheses, we got some exponents, we got some subtraction going on. So what are we going to do with this? Well, Step 1 still dominates. So we want to do what's in the parentheses first. So we got 2 sets of parentheses we can work with. So 7 minus 5 gives you a 2. And since it's a positive 2, we really don't need to keep those parentheses. We can lose them and bring down the exponent. 1 minus 4. Now, if you're still a little rusty with doing some of these operations, you can, use those extra steps. So remember, 1 minus 4, if we do the squeeze of a plus in there, 1 plus negative 4, signs are different, so we got to subtract it. And so we should get a negative 3. So because the answer is negative, we do want to keep those parentheses. So negative 3 to the second power. So there we go. Parentheses are gone as far as stuff to do inside of them. And so now we can take care of the exponents. All right, so we have 2 to the second power. So remember, that's just 2 times 2, which is 4. Bring down the minus. Negative 3 to the second power. Well, so negative 3 times negative 3 should be positive. So positive 9. And so now we got 4 minus 9. Now, a little trick that I like to do with these is that what happens if I reverse those two numbers around? We know that 9 minus 4 equals a positive 5. So when you reverse it, the only thing that changes is the sign. So you don't really need to even change it to addition and stuff like that. Sometimes you can do that little trick and just say, oh, well, what happens if I reverse it? Oh, I know that's equal to 5. So if I put it back to the way it was, it should be negative 5. Done. So that should be your answer for that one. All right, D's got a lot more stuff going on here. We got a subtraction, we got division, we got exponents, we got multiplication, and addition. We got everything going on here. So where do we start? Well, exponent comes before addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So we really got to do this before we do anything. Now, sometimes it's nice to do more than one step at a time, like we did over here. We did both sets of parentheses, but what would we want to do next in here? Well, subtraction is not going to dominate over division, so we can't do that. We can't do the addition because we got to know what's going on here. And remember, this is multiplication here, so we can't really do that until we know what's going to happen inside of here. So let's just go and write it all down. And we can say 12 minus 20 divided by 4. Negative 4 times negative 4 better be positive 16 plus 9. All right, so now we just got adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So what do we want to do first? Left to right is correct. So we got to go left to right. So we do want to do this division next. And really that's all we can do. We can't do anything else yet. So we got 12 minus 20 divided by 4 is 5. Still got the 16 and then the 9. So next, again, we got multiplication here. So that dominates over subtraction and addition. 5 times 16 is 80. All right, so now we're just down to subtraction and addition. So which one of those do we do first? Left to right, left to right. So we got to do the subtraction first. Now remember the little trick we did over here. The smaller number's first and the bigger one's second. So what happens if we reverse it? 80 minus 12 is 68. But because it's reversed, it's going to be a negative 68. So negative 68 plus 9. And so now we can use our rules for addition, which says we got to subtract them. But your answer should be positive or negative. Yeah, it's going to have to be negative. Negative 59. So that takes care of that one. This is probably one of the harder sections just because there's so many different ways you can tackle these problems. So you just got to be really careful in practice. So we got a couple more on the next page. Look at that. All right, so big old fraction bars. Now there wasn't really a rule that kind of addressed that, but here's the rule. If there's stuff to do above and below the fraction bar, you got to do that first. The fraction bar is the last thing you tackle in these cases. So looking at the top, we got a set of parentheses, so we got to break that down first. But which operation do we do first inside of those parentheses? Yep, we got to do the division. So let's do the division here. And we really can't do anything else. But on the bottom, though, there's only just the subtraction, so we can do that too. So 30 minus 15 divided by 3 is 5, plus a negative 5. 5 minus 10, well, again, reverse it. 10 minus 5 is 5, so it's going to be a negative 5. Negative 5 there. All right, well, we can definitely do this subtraction now. So that's going to be 25. And now we can do this addition. So 25 plus a negative 5, so we got to subtract. So that's going to give you a positive 20 over negative 5. And now we can do our division. So 20 divided by negative 5 better be negative, and it should be a negative 4. So not too bad with that one. This one's going to be a real fun one. There's a lot of layers to this one. So let's see what we got. So we got an exponent, we got multiplying, we got parentheses that we got to add, we got another multiplication going on here. You got some addition, some multiplying, multiplying, addition. Ugh. Well, let's box what we can do. Now exponents come before multiplication, so we got to do this exponent. This set of parentheses here is pretty separate, and we can do that. We can simplify what's inside of there. Now what about this last bit? We got a plus 4 times negative 1. What can we do with that? Anything? Well, yeah, the multiplication comes before the addition does, so we should be able to do this multiplication. All right, so we'll take care of that in a second. Let's look at the bottom now. So we got a plus. So 4 plus 5. We want to add that together? No, we can't do that because it's not in parentheses. So if it was in parentheses, then yes, we could add that 4 plus 5. But because it's not, we got to wait because this 5 is attached to this by multiplication. So we're going to have to do this this multiplication in here, but we can't really do that until we do what's in the parentheses. So, and we got another set of parentheses, so we can tackle that as well. It's very tempting to want to add that together because it's an easy add. But because there's a multiplication there, that stops you dead in your tracks. Okay, so 2 to the third power. 2 times 2 times 2. So remember, that's going to be equal to 8 times negative 2 plus 5. So we're going to subtract. And we're going to get a positive 3 plus 4 times negative 1 should be negative 4. And we'll use parentheses around that. Okay. The 4 plus the 5 we can't do yet. Negative 6 times 2 better be a negative 12. 5 times 11 is a positive 55, so we don't need the parentheses anymore. So there's step one. We broke down all those things. So now let's look at what we got left. We got a multiplication and an addition. So which one do we do first? Yeah, gotta do this multiplication first. Okay, down the bottom, we got addition, we got another multiplication, and another addition. Same thing, gotta do the multiplication first. All right, so there's only two things we can do. So we got 8 times 3, which is 24. And we got the negative 4 still. On the bottom, we got 4 plus 5 times negative 12. Well, 5 times 12 is 60. And then so it should be a negative 60. And then plus the 55. Almost there. All right, so 24 plus negative 4, we got to subtract, and the bigger one's positive, so we should get a positive 20. Now on the bottom, you got addition throughout. Now remember, when it's all addition, you can use those properties and you can combine stuff differently. So if you wanted to combine the two positive numbers together first, you could do that in this case, or if you're not 100% sure, left to right is always the way to go. So we could just combine these two together. So 4 and negative 60, what would that equal? It's going to be a negative 56, and then plus the 55. All right, and then the last step for the bottom, negative 56 and 55. So we got to subtract, and we get a negative 1. And so now our answer should be negative 20. Whew. A lot of layers to it. Now, the one thing that you might see on the homework is a case where the bottom simplifies down to 0. So what happens when you have 0 on the bottom again? If I had 20 over 0, remember that's equal to undefined. So sometimes that happens. Hint, hint, hint. So, all right. That wraps up this section. So next chapter is we're going to jump ahead a little bit to chapter 5. So chapter 5 is a lot of the same stuff, but we're dealing with decimals now. So we'll see you soon.